you can build intentionally so that you are creating not only an experience that is one of one, but a brand that is one of one. And I mean, that's the biggest moat that you can have at the end of the day. You create something that's irreplicable, and both by design, and I think most of the time it's difficult to have that level of awareness when you're beginning, that your goal is to create something that truly is one of one in the area that you're trying to build.
Who's this? Oh, you're an entrepreneur? Oh, you're a real estate investor. Oh, you're trying to learn from those who did it. Well, come into the lab then. Put your white coat on, gloves on, notepad, and let's build, y'all.
In this episode, I have the pleasure of bringing in Brian Hatcher, founder and CEO of Hatch Capital, and his partner, who he brought on board for Hatch Capital, who's also doing and helping with not only the management side, but the real estate development side of the micro resort. Now, two things here. One thing that I always look at is when someone is coming from a place of abundance, you look around at the people and the impact he's able or he or she is able to have. And Brian Hatcher has done just that. If you didn't listen to the first episode, the previous episode, part one of this, just right before this episode, go ahead and listen to Brian Hatcher, the founder of Hatch Capital, and see how he kind of started from real estate hacking and broke into the micro resort development niche. Now, what he did alongside of that is has a data-driven management company and consulting firm. And alongside, as he's grown that out, he also brought Aaron Appleton on, who also was able to inspire and plant the seed of also him diving into his own micro resort development. And together we have them both come in and talk a lot about mindset and the things that it takes, that is required to jump into a total, complete new domain, burn the ships, go all in. And also, these two embody truly what partnership, friendship actually looks like, where there is enough for everyone to grab. The pie is big enough, and it's about collaboration and not competition. And Brian Hatcher and Aaron Appleton both hop in the lab, outdoors that is, in beautiful San Diego, where we sit down and talk shop a lot, and including but not limited to the real estate. As a matter of fact, we even tap into the most important real estate, and that is the one between your two ears. That is the mindset that you need to have, the mentality in order to tackle these large experiments in any lab. And your lab, as you know, is your world, and I want you to take these elements from our world to your world to your lab. So without further ado, let's get into it.
Hey, fellas, we are in the cut. How are we doing? Y'all look like money, bro. What's going on? See, this is why I'm here. I want to be in proximity to opulence.
This man.
You know? That's what it's about. I want to be rubbing, pause, shoulders with those who are making things happen. Listen, I respect you guys both, man. You guys are some shakers. And I was just saying yesterday, like over dinner, did we even get flicks at dinner time? Damn.
Oh, we actually did.
Born and raised. Shout out to Born and Raised, y'all.
Yeah.
What?
Hey.
Literally, I ran into Danny at the conference, and I'm like, bruh, born and raised. He's like, born and what? Born and raised.
Yes.
And then I ran into the other homie. I was like, born and raised.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
We're locked in.
Yes. Absolutely. The only joint you need to eat at.
Yes, for sure, man.
That food was incredible.
Yeah.
Next level.
Yeah. But hey, listen, Aaron, you said something the other day that I really resonated with. You're like, you got to rest where your feet are.
Imperative.
Let's unpack that.
Yeah.
You gotta
Please.
be in the moment. Be where your feet are. Be in the present, because all we have is the now. I always like to think about it. The past and the future are all psychological concepts, because you cannot escape where your feet are. The moment is all we have, all we will ever have.
Yes.
So I'm always mindful of that, because we're always creating, whether we're conscious of it or we're not.
No, that right there, whether we're conscious of it or not, I feel like so many people are not conscious of it.
Oh.
And because they're not conscious, they're not intentional with what they're creating. The life that they're creating, the moments they're creating, who they're creating it with, how it's being created. You know, you have to be consciously aware of those things because that literally determines the direction of your life.
So I'm pulling up a quote you gave me yesterday, Brian. I was like, no, I got to take this down. This is crazy. You said this at dinner, and I tweeted it. You said, most people are so uniquely aware of who they are not, they have no idea who they really are.
Yep.
What? What?
Yeah. I think about that on a daily basis. And you hear, I know we talked about this at dinner, but you hear it through conversation with people, through how they talk and what they say, or, you know, even myself, you start to analyze your own conversation. I used to say like, oh, I'm not the type of person to X, or I don't do this, or I'm not that, or this, that, and the third. And like focusing so much on who and what you're not is the wrong way. It goes back to what we were talking about being intentional about what you're creating. When you are intentionally focused on the lack, or as what you've explained to me before as Ruben, the gap, instead of the gain of who you can be, who you actually are, what you're destined for, where your focus goes, your attention and energy flows. And if you're constantly focused on the lack of what you don't have, who you're not, you can't put energy and attention towards the things that the type of person that you want to be, the places that you want to go, the things that you want to build to make those things truly grow and manifest them into what you want them to be, because your attention isn't there.
That's a fact.
Absolutely. No.
That's a fact. You know what's crazy? I think it kind of ties into the... Remember, E-Man, we talked about this in the kitchen for like a hot minute, bro. Like a hot minute. It was... One of the biggest lessons learned in 2024 for me was... it was very limiting, actually. And it's something that I think limits most of us, is trying to think about the how versus the what, right? So, you know, a lot of people will talk about, well, the goal. It's like, yeah, I want this goal. And we were talking about this, right, in the morning. Like, and like one of the things that we realized is like, and I saw a video about this the other day. It was just like most entrepreneurs. It was actually Rich. Shout out to Rich. Rich Summers here, because we're in the neck of the woods here in San Diego, and he said most entrepreneurs who started something literally just started it without knowing how, and they figured it out. And and then we talked about like it's almost like what did you call it? The analogy?
It's the I look at it as when you're in fog and you have headlights. You cannot see the destination or where you're heading, but you have enough to keep going. You know. And I always think about that, because we become so outcome oriented. If we can't see the destination, you get that paralysis by analysis. But you just need enough to keep going.
Or even worse than well, actually, no, I say analysis paralysis is worse. The second worst to that is readjusting your goal based on where you are.
Absolutely.
Because you're like, oh, I don't know how I'm gonna get there. Therefore, let me just get a little bit more realistic.
Right.
Absolutely.
Let me turn off right here because I can see that.
Absolutely.
Even though you know that's not the real destination.
And going back to what you said too, Aaron and Brian, if you think about it, low key, this is what the young bucks are teaching me, low key versus high key. I think this is low key. You let me know if I'm wrong. Low key, we are where we are today based on the previous thoughts that we had.
Absolutely.
Which means if we would have dreamt bigger, we'd be somewhere else.
Absolutely.
But by the way, this ain't bad, by the way.
No.
Hey, this ain't bad. Hey, look at me. Hey, you know what I did? Hey. So, but it goes without saying, like, what if we just stretched that a little bit more and just thought without the how, and just thought, this is what I want for me, my family, my legacy. I don't have to have the how figured out.
No.
And bro, that was my biggest lesson in 2024 at 33. Think about it, right?
No, for real. It's powerful. Like, and you realize it it's something we talk about a lot because I know we have our calls, our accountability calls, and I've started to have more. It's funny, a lot of the conversations we have, I take away and have with my loved ones. And even that conversation, that intentional conversation of what do you really want? Because most people don't sit down and actually figure out what they want. And not just from a what is it, but what does it look like? How does it feel? Who is it with?
Yes.
Where are you?
Yes.
What are you wearing?
Yes.
Where are you living? What are you driving? Who are you enjoying it with? You know, like all of that. And I think the more granular you can get on what you want, the clearer the destination becomes, and you now have a filter of what you can push every decision, action, and opportunity through
That doesn't align with that.
that doesn't align with the
Absolutely.
destination, because either it pushes you closer to it or it keeps you further away from it.
Yeah.
But if you have no idea what that point is, I look at it as like setting the destination in a GPS. If you just get in the car and you don't know where you're going, you're driving aimlessly.
Absolutely.
You know? And you have to know exactly where you're trying to go.
Yeah.
That's how you can measure if you're making progress.
No, 100%. I definitely want to piggyback off of that, because I think something you said is very important is the granularity of it. You know, really seeing it, really feeling it, embodying it. You know, think about what you're wearing, because like a big thing that I always think about, the mind cannot tell the difference between a thought and what you're physically experiencing. So why don't you prepare yourself for a preview of your coming reality? Because your mind can't tell the difference.
Hey,
It
bro,
literally
it's
cannot.
Monday, bro. You could have taken us to church yesterday. And you... hey, bro. What?
It can. That's why I was like,
Hey,
oh,
you have to pass the offering plate around. This is crazy.
no, it's very important to do that.
It is.
It's and especially too, once you start to create those sensory experiences, you physically can embody it, you know,
Absolutely.
and you're preparing yourself for that coming reality.
Y'all,
But with anything, it's a muscle. It takes training, it takes time, but it's like at the end of the day, might as well put your time into something you want to manifest and create in your reality.
That part.
Because otherwise it'll be created for you.
Now, look, that's a whole nother tangent.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother if you're not intentional with the life, the world that you're creating, someone else will create it for you.
Yep.
And too often do people look up and they look around and they ask themselves, how did I get here?
you know, I want to go back to that. First of all, when you said the feeling, y'all got to check out this book called Feeling is a Secret by Neville
Neville
Goddard.
Goddard.
Oh,
Come
yo,
on,
this
I
man,
love
like,
Neville.
yo,
Hey,
we,
Come
game.
on.
no, I think low key we are like some spiritual animals, like because he be listening to my joints, be like, yo, Ruben, that's a track. I'm like, I know no one else knows this track. So how you know this track? I don't even know what this track is called. I just listen to it every day. So what?
No, Neville
That's
is
a-
The Power of Awareness is another
What?
phenomenal book by him.
Of course, bro.
Yeah,
Oh, don't
Neville's
do
a-
that.
Yeah, yeah.
I might have to. Hey,
Yeah.
that's a big one. The Secret Science of Getting Rich, by W.D. Waddles.
Yeah.
Bro, I'm a big believer of like working on spirituality. But going back to, you said something yesterday that like really hit. I remember I was trying to think of it as you were speaking. I didn't want to interrupt you. Damn, how are you guys? Let me just reflect on that. How are you guys like getting into the feeling of it though? I'm curious. Like, is it journaling? Is it meditation? Is it? Because I think. Oh, okay. So here's where I wanted to go. I want to ask that, but here's where I was gonna go around the what happens. I'll come back. What happens, I feel like, is we get so caught up in the agenda of the norm of like, okay, go to school, do that, cool. But then we clearly start realizing that was never our agenda to begin with, right? And now, because that agenda does take time, energy, we're so drained when we're doing the other agenda that we don't even have the time to even reflect on what we want. Like, we had this conversation, I'm gonna put you on blast here, bro. You're coming in hot. We were talking about it, and you're a young buck. You got so much time, but like behind the scenes, we were talking about this offline. And I've asked this because sometimes I'll go to my alma mater and I love playing tennis or play basketball. And I was talking to a young girl there. You know, she was a junior in college, very similar. And I was like, hey, like, what you trying to, like, what are you interested in? What gets you out of bed is usually what I say. What gets you out of bed, right? She's like, I don't know. No one's really asked me that. I'm like, have you asked yourself that?
Wow.
Right? Because she was talking about major, this, that, and the third. I'm like, it don't matter about the major. It's about the skill set, baby. That's all it is. But at the end of the day, that skill set has to be put to use for something. And we don't even take the... Bro, like, I genuinely think it's possible for someone to live a life without themselves asking that, because they're just so plugged in. Go to work, see family, hang out, which is cool. It's cool they hanging out, but not even getting a chance to just ask yourself, hey, like, what do I want?
Absolutely.
Because, bro, I don't know if you noticed, but like, if you ask someone what they want, very few people
Most don't know.
can tell you.
Yeah.
And by the way, like, that's not to say like I have it 100% figured out, but I can give you like a compass of where I'm going.
Yeah.
Right? And then fulfillment changes over time. Things, as you get older, priorities change.
Absolutely.
But I have a compass, and I know where I'm pointing it, and I know what I'm optimizing for, right? And it's not just money. Money is a big thing now. Don't get it twisted. Now, I'm not gonna be the one who tell you I don't like nice things. Y'all see that?
Yeah, I see.
You know what I mean? I'm not gonna. Hey, listen. Let's not be confused. But also understand what's important to me. This is important to me. Experiences. I always tell, like, yesterday, what was I saying? Like, hey, man, I appreciate you guys, man. Because this is like, I value this as quality living. I value the run that we just had this morning where we ran together. I value health. Y'all know I value Yuka. Shout out to Yuka, man. That app is different. Look at this. So yeah, health, wealth, love is happiness. Health, wealth, love, and happiness, right? You're kind of optimizing for like all verticals, right? And yeah, just reflecting on that, it's just like, but yeah, having a compass, having a direction, having your core values aligned. But I think sometimes we're just so consumed by the agenda of like the world, right?
Yeah.
Like the news, it's good to be aware, but don't let it consume you, baby.
Absolutely not.
Right?
No.
You got your own shit going on that you got to work on. You got your own disasters, natural disasters that you gotta work on.
Absolutely.
Right?
Experiment Nation, you've heard me talk about how multiple investors across the nation are landing these lucrative midterm rental insurance contracts by making these small tweaks on the branding and marketing side. Especially if you're an existing short-term rental operator, there is a quick and easy shift that you can make with the ride guide in place. And because we've launched a 2-day boot camp that not everyone could attend in real time, I've put together a recording where you can get all the materials and all the guides to focus on rebranding either your short-term rental business or your current midterm rental business, so that you can actually have the insurance companies reach out to you. And then day 2 is if you want to actually play offense, how you can reach out to them by listing on the right platforms, etc. If you're looking to get this MTR bootcamp so that you can start optimizing and you can start receiving these lucrative contracts that again provide less headaches, less turnovers, unlike the Airbnb space, you can start receiving inquiries today by having the right guide in place. So please go to experimentrealestate.com/MTR bootcamp or click the link in the bio to make sure you get your hands on this midterm rental insurance bootcamp to fast track your way into landing these lucrative insurance contracts the exact same ways multiple investors have taken advantage of this unknown and untapped niche within the midterm rental umbrella.
And it's not to be selfish, but it's like there's a need for it. And I'm glad I feel like before, even for the culture too, like personal development, trauma, all that stuff, people aren't really as tapped in. I feel like now it's getting a little bit more prevalent, which is great. Now I do think there's a balance, because I also think we've gotten completely soft, and the whole thing about discipline, hard work. That's why I can appreciate Alex Hormozy, because it's like, yes, manifest, great, be aligned, but you still got to do the work. Right?
Bingo. It still takes what it takes.
It takes work. And I recently quoted the other day too. It was like from somebody. It was like, I forget how exactly how it was, but it's just work can be done in different capacities, and obviously we're learning that. I want to get into the stuff you guys are working on right now, because work can be working on your skills to become a better leader. Work doesn't mean you have to work with your hands, right? What does our mentor always say, or at least my mentor, right? And we say a bunch of content, Myron Golden. There's like 4 different levels of communication, right? One is with the mind, one with the hands, one is with communication, and one is just spiritual, right?
Absolutely.
And lower is lowest, and there's not wrong with it. We need it with your hands,
It's with your hands, yep.
right? Then there's level of management. You're managing other people. Then there's communication, and then there's the visualization.
Yep.
Where you're visionary.
Right.
You're a visionary, and you let people you bring the right people in your community, right? You build community, you build a vision, you have buy-in, and then the thing gets done. You don't go to Mars by yourself, bro.
No.
You don't build Microsoft by yourself. You don't build Tesla by yourself, Amazon. You build it with a vision, though.
Absolutely.
And you build it with a vision when you know where you're going.
Absolutely.
So it's like it's almost like we're doing people a favor by being clear on where we're going to help other people come with us who need a direction and a sense to be committed to if they don't have it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Isn't that crazy?
No,
crazy.
and even just to expand on that, talking about leadership, like some of the greatest leaders, that's exactly how they are created. They have a vision, or they are the visionary, and their vision, other people's vision and goals and where they're trying to go fit within alignment of the vision. And so everyone has a shared common goal to achieve the collective vision. Yes. But someone has to set that vision and make sure, and also maintain that everyone still is headed towards that vision. You know? And to your point, it's like, it goes back to that intentionality. You have to be intentional about setting that tone, setting that vision, what that feels like, looks like, sounds like, because it's created every day, each moment. Like you said, being where your feet are. It's created in that capacity. But if you're paying attention to the noise, which is what I like to call, you know, the world, right? The social media, the headlines, the news, the music, it's all noise. It's all just noise. And you have to block the noise out so that you can stay focused, so that you can really listen, so that you can really see and discern and understand where you're trying to go and why. So that when you get too caught up in the noise, that's when you start getting off track. You know, you might take a little detour. You might take an exit a little bit too early. And hang out for a little bit. You know, but when you block all the noise out, it keeps you on track and headed straight towards where you're trying to go.
How do we let's talk about, how do you know when to take the exit? Or if you should take an exit?
In what capacity?
Oh, there he goes. You're thinking like previously, before we were recording, we're doing with the assumption that.
Well, okay, I will say this. I think there's a difference between an exit and a redirection.
So how do you know?
Right?
How do we know the difference between?
Absolutely. I think an exit, I would equate an exit to quitting.
Yeah.
And I think that to answer that, I think you quit when the outcome
No longer aligns with your desire and vision?
absolutely, the outcome no longer aligns with where you're trying to go. Because at the end of the day, we grow and evolve as people each and every day.
Yeah.
And to your point, the goal is not the end all be all. Each goal is a checkpoint. And you know, it's not I'm going to get there and I'm done. The race is over. No, I've got there, but when you get there, you realize that there's so much more to go. Just like with knowledge and understanding, the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know and that there's so much more to learn. And I think it's the same thing with your goals. The more you hit your goals, the more you realize that there were so many other levels to the goal that you had initially set in the first place. But when that goal shifts and it's entirely in a different area from the direction that you were going, that is when you stop. But if nothing has changed fundamentally about where you're trying to go, the process to get there, you should stay the course.
Do you think it's when the goal shifts, or it's when you shift with your alignment towards the goal? Because goals really shift? Or is it more of like, I don't think this is what I want to do?
I think that's better
anymore.
said. I think the alignment towards the goal shifts. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that's a much better way to say it. Because you're so right. Because I think about previous goals I had, I'm no longer aligned with them.
Yeah. It's not, it's not. I got kids now. It don't matter.
Right.
Yeah.
Or
Right.
whatever. Right.
Right.
That's interesting. I'm just thinking about that as you're saying it. That's very interesting. And if we think about that, though, like, I think as long as you have going back to a new direction, that's when it's redirected, not exiting.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
I would definitely agree with that, because I always like to think about, heard this quote, is that there's 1,000 different ways to get to the mountaintop, but the view is still the same. You know, so it's like you never want to box yourself in. I think the malleability
into the
of
how.
it- exactly, because there's information that will help you get to your desired outcome or goal that you may not have access to for another week or two. You know, that will redirect or change the alignment with how you're going to get there. You know, you don't know what information you're going to acquire on the journey to get you to the.
That makes you
know?
realize that, oh, actually, the car was not the right vehicle. The plane is, so therefore we gotta take the exit to the airport.
Yeah.
Damn. That's interesting, man.
Yeah. Sometimes you come across a new vehicle.
Yeah, because that's the right exit.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, that's fact.
Yeah.
New vehicle. Damn. So let's talk about the journey you guys are on right now, man. Like, I feel like you both are like tackling on a new journey and a symbiotic as well. Some of it together, some of it, with your respective brands. Like, let's unpack that. How's that been? We were chopping it up the other morning. How's that? How do we even how do we get here?
You want to start?
How'd you take it?
Okay.
Yeah.
I think multiple ways. I think first is realizing, paying attention to timing and paying attention to opportunity. I think we realize that the industry that we're in, not only just real estate, but specifically short-term rentals, is growing and changing rapidly. And we've experienced a lot of unique times, even just within, I think, our lives, like socially and economically, both with COVID and then AI. I think being so close to one another, it's accelerated the growth of a lot of industries, but especially the hospitality industry and how humans connect with one another. And I think realizing that something like the curation of human experience and places and memories is something that is going to become exponentially more valuable as technology continues to grow, as AI continues to grow, as our economy and world shifts more. Something that COVID, of course, even sped up in terms of, just seeing how we shifted to such isolation, right? I think we're at a space where both emotionally and economically, people are craving more togetherness. And
That's true.
Seeing that in alignment with where the short-term rental industry is going, with people being more experience-driven in their travel, really is what I feel like pushed both of us towards the whole experiential hospitality niche of creating those experiences for people beyond just a house, for people to come and stay at when it comes to vacation. And then I feel like it's also the natural next progression if you're working in just kind of the short-term rental space, because you're only going to get so much benefit from being a good operator of a single-family home. But once you bring in that commercial aspect, and once you shift it to building something that is more of a business and a brand outside of just a specific location and a home, you're able to truly capitalize and benefit from your ability to operate well and to be a good business owner. And you actually get to reap all of the true tangible benefits of that. So I think it just, the alignment of opportunity of where things currently are, along with just timing of being in the right place at the right time, within this industry, within our skill sets of how you are moving and growing those skill sets, have made it so that it makes sense for this to be the right thing to pursue it right now.
Why not? Good at response. Why not create experiences in single family homes? Why micro resorts? Why going out to get land? I'm so curious.
I think an aspect of it has to do with location as well. I think in the single family space, yes, you can have a certain amenities, certain things of that nature, but it still creates somewhat of a limited experience. I think in the, experiential hospitality realm, micro resort realm, I think that communal feel, I think there's a lot of things that you can't create unless you're in that realm in the first place. And more than anything, I always think about experiences, emotions, the way you make people feel, that can't be replaced. That's an inanimate object,
Yes.
And it's like certain places, locations create those experiences for you, because I always think about it, you want to backtrack, you want to think about the consumer and then backtrack to create that experience, so you always want to have that in mind with anything you're looking to curate, especially in a niche like this. And to Brian's point, for sure, like, it's still early, but the writing is on the wall where things are heading, and it's like you always want to be at the forefront of innovation
100%.
because otherwise you'll be looking backwards, and it's like, dang, I missed that window. Because everything in life are windows and phases, and the thing about windows and phases, they are impermanent. So that means they are only there for a certain period of time, and then it's on to the next, so you got to capture it while it's there.
Interesting. What do you guys think is like the vision and the future, both collectively and individually, for the brands that you guys are working on right now? Because if it is right, if it is a window, then how do we make sure that window of time is future proof, so that, hey, this isn't gonna get old, this is ongoing, right? How do you think about that longevity?
I think a lot of that goes into the process of how you build it.
Yeah.
Knowing that, let me say this too. I think we can borrow from what we've already seen, right? So we've seen this life cycle already with short-term rentals. And so I think understanding already what separates short-term rental, what separates one single-family home short-term rental from another, a lot of it at the end of the day comes down to creating something that is one of one. And when you have that understanding on the front end, you can build intentionally so that you are creating not only an experience that is one of one, but a brand that is one of one. And I mean, that's the biggest moat that you can have at the end of the day. You create something that's irreplicable, and both by design, and I think most of the time it's difficult to have that level of awareness when you're beginning, that your goal is to create something that truly is one of one in the area that you're trying to build. And we could go deep in some of that, but of course we want to keep some stuff close to the chest in terms of how you make something irreplicable, specifically in the way that we're doing it. But I think in how you want to think about it, that's how we're considering it and thinking about it.
That's sick, man. So what do you think with the future holds? What's the big vision? That way we can say, hey, man, we were here April 28th, 2025. They said they did it, and they did it.
No, of course. I mean, ultimately, the vision is to create a full-blown experiential hospitality brand that encompasses a series of these different locations and experiences, not just in the U.S., but across the globe.
Oh, we going global.
Oh, of course. Of course. That's a must.
Okay.
Absolutely.
You said, yeah.
Absolutely. Something akin to a Marriott, something akin to a Hyatt Hilton, maybe not as big, I would say, in terms of structure, like a Marriott Hyatt Hilton, but in terms of feel and design, I would say something more of like an Aman, a Mirage, Sandals, those smaller boutique type of experiences, but done very tastefully, very intentionally, in a very curated way.
Hey,
absolutely.
Told you I'm trying to hang with them boys.
Absolutely. No, the clients, the customers, they feel that. The difference is in the details. They can feel the intentionality behind everything, you know, and it shows up. It shows up in all aspects of it. But I think that's where you get that conversion from a customer to a client, because of that repeat traction, because you provided them with a one-of-one stay. But that doesn't happen overnight. That's something that's curated intentionally and over time with the consumer in mind from the beginning.
Yeah, it's interesting what you said about they recognize it, because I think one of the things we recognize as operators, even being here on this property, it's just like, hey, like there's a lot of gaps. And if you know, you know.
Absolutely.
Like if you come from that world, you're like, I see. How you do one thing is how you do everything. So
Absolutely.
cut corners on one end. So
definitely.
yeah.
But it's like even what Brian said, thinking about the Imams, the sandals, you have to think. I always look at it. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. Success leaves clues. There are certain behaviors and parameters that, regardless of location, that brand has the same infrastructure. You know.
Yeah.
And that goes a long way.
Yeah. Look, I want to bring this full circle and put a bow on this because you said success leave clues, right?
Absolutely.
And one of the things that we started a conversation with was having a vision. And one of the things you guys both mentioned is seeing the writing on the wall. We've seen this before. And you also started to name some brands that kind of are giving you that direction of where to go. One of the things my mentor says is, if you want something, find yourself a mentor, a guide, a proof of concept, and borrow their mental syntax, their physiology, and their belief system. Right. So so that's how you know which exit to take, because either you're going to take the one that one of your mentors or a brand has taken, or you're going to have them on your side as a consultant, and they're going to say, hey, I think you should take the exit to the airport, right? What you guys think?
I agree with that. That reminded me one of my favorite books, It Takes What It Takes, by Trevor Moawad. It's performance psychologist, but one of my favorite parts of the book is there's a short excerpt about Fred Taylor, running back for the Jacksonville Jaguars in the 90s. He had the nickname Fragile Fred because as a running back, he couldn't stay healthy. Obviously, the demands of the position, I could understand why. But a big aspect of the book is behaviors precede success. And he talks about what all Fred Taylor did was he started to watch the guys who are on their second, third, and fourth contract. What does that tell you about a guy in the NFL that's on second, third, or fourth contract? They have longevity. So what behaviors do they have that are prolonging their career? It was crazy. The guys who are on their second, third, and fourth contract did soft tissue work at 5 a.m., prehab work, mobility work, and were always in the hot tub pre and post practice. He just adopted those behaviors. He said it added 6 to 7 years to his career. All he did was replicate the behaviors of guys who were doing the same thing he wanted to do.
That's a word right there.
That's
the embodiment.
Yes.
I mean, you can't make it any clearer.
You talked about pattern recognition.
Yeah.
Which is wisdom.
That
Being
is
able
the
to recognize
foundation of knowledge. The foundation of knowledge.
What's wrong with y'all?
That's a whole episode in itself, honestly. We could go deep on pattern recognition.
Absolutely.
Nah, we gotta leave it at that, man. That's too much. Because sometimes it's funny because I come to these. Yes, we had a meetup. It was amazing, but then I attend we had our VIP event. Sometimes, man, one nugget per experience implemented deeply. We plant that seed, water the plant, water the seed, and then it turns into a plant, then it turns into a tree, then you take the fruits of your labor and you're able to actually benefit from that. But one idea implemented very deeply can go a long ways rather than try to scatter. That was game right there. And if we just did that, right, and that's why I love mentorship or following a brand that has a proof of concept that's been literally untouched for decades. What are they doing?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. What are they not doing that we can do? Let's close the gap.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
Damn. Well, listen, gentlemen, I'm proud of you, man, and seeing other brothers on the other side like this,
Appreciate you.
shining and glowing.
Absolutely.
Damn.
Likewise.
Yeah.
Yo, you're killing it. You're building something incredible, man.
Thank
I
you,
know
man.
we talked a lot, but
Indeed.
we want to give you your flowers too.
Thanks,
brother.
Even us being out here together, creating this experience, gathering us together, curating the events this weekend,
Thanks, King.
bringing in gyms, the right people, places, knowledge, everything. That's big.
I receive
Absolutely.
it. Thank you. I receive it.
So,
Much.
appreciate you.
I receive it. Thank you very much, man.
blessings. I always lean into we're all mirrors at the end of the day. We only recognize in others what we see in ourselves. So always be mindful of that. Like for real, you see it because it's within you as well.
Absolutely.
Thank you, King. Iron sharpens iron. I
Absolutely.
think there's only one way to end this episode.
Hey,
Experimentation, I believe there are two critical components that will help you achieve your goals very quickly and succeed. Number one, it's information like this that you received on a show, in an episode, and content that you can find on my YouTube channel or anybody's channel. And then there's a community. And the way we've been able to expedite our process, the way people in our community, people that we consult, mastermind members, whoever, they get the information on an episode like this, but then they also have the support, whether it's me guiding them or being guided through a community. There is an opportunity for you listening to be able to expedite your process or even expedite your results that you're seeking by being part of the community. If that is what you're interested in, we at Experiment Nation happen to have a community devoted to helping maximize your occupancy and your profitability altogether, regardless of which market that you are in. And for that reason, you have an opportunity where you can go to experimentrealestate.com/submit if you're looking to work in an environment that can help you prosper faster. Call out any areas that you might not be familiar in, especially the blind spots. That's where a guide comes in hand, and I would be a pleasure and honored to be your guide. But in order to make sure you're a good fit, make sure you go to experimentrealestate.com/submit so that my team can go ahead and take it and see if you're a good fit to join the mastermind and the multiple programs that we have. In addition to that, I'm also now a YouTube partner, which means that I want to give you more access to information, more access to Q&As, more access to the questions that actually come out of our mastermind to help people expedite the process. We've seen people get anywhere from $4,000 to $5,000 to $6,000 to even $7,000 a month net on just one door by applying the strategies that we use by working with corporations and furnished accommodation in a very strategic way. So if you're interested, make sure you also subscribe, because I'm going to have different tiers that's on YouTube now that we've become YouTube partner, to continue to be the bridge to your success in your lab. And your lab means your life, your goals, or wherever you're trying to head. So make sure you also hit the subscribe button on my YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/real estate experiment. We'll be there. You can also look us up at Midterm Rental Insurance Experiment. We will be there. Make sure you hit the subscribe, because that's when you'll know the tiers that are available to you that make sense for you, your marketplace, for your results. Remember, you're only one experiment away. Let's build.